And on the line listening to that and everything else, because I'm sure he's a great follower of the show, is Stephen Kinnock, Labour's MP for Aberavon, a member of the Brexit Select Committee and a pro-European in the centre sort of space of the Labour Party. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Good morning, John.
Can I just come to a point we were touching on earlier on? And I mentioned there with the Labour MPs, I mentioned a couple who'd be perhaps willing to vote with Theresa May on a deal if there is one, rather than risk no deal. Are you one of those?
No, I'm not. I think we have to stick to our Labour Party policy as defined at conference, which is that we want full participation in the single market. I've been banging the drum for 2 years now for an EEA-based Brexit. I've always felt that there's going to be two possible deals on offer, a Canada-style free trade agreement or European Economic Area. European Economic Area is clearly the better of the two. It does far less damage to our economy. And it's the only option, I think, that can reunite our deeply divided country.
But neither of those options are going to be available by the end of the year, and certainly by the time Parliament has what's been called this meaningful vote on the outline deal that may have been reached so far. That stuff is going to be talked about, if it is talked about, after we leave the European Union in who knows how long a period of talks. When it comes to the vote before the end of the year, would you vote for the government rather than risk no deal? Because some of your colleagues say they would.
No, it's vital to see that this is a package. There's the withdrawal agreement and then there's the political declaration on the future relationship.
Yeah, which will be pretty vague, won't it?
Well, that's where we need to make sure that we don't just vote for a blindfolded Brexit. I can't, in all good conscience, go through the division lobby voting for something which is the most important issue since the Second World War with a blindfold on.
Yeah. So if you don't get an opportunity, if you don't get a chance before the end of the year in this big set of votes or votes to vote for what you want, which is a relationship with Europe, not so far from that which exists between the EU and Norway, if that isn't on the table, would you vote for what Theresa May is talking about by way of a close relationship with the customs union of the European Union?
The key point here is that the motion that comes before us, probably in late November, will be amendable. So there will be plenty of opportunities for us to put down amendments. I believe that there is a cross-party majority for an amendment instructing the government to go back to Brussels and negotiate an EEA-based Brexit.
It's going to be up to the Speaker, that stuff, isn't it? It'll be up to John Bercow, the Speaker.
Well, it's an amendable motion. That has been made absolutely clear by the government in the Brexit Select Committee. David Davis came to us. Dominic Raab has also reconfirmed this. It will be an amendable motion, and there will be amendments coming in. I think some colleagues will put forward an amendment for a second referendum or people's vote, as some call it. I would be very keen to see an amendment on European Economic Area. We can't just have a huge leap of faith here where we don't actually know what we're voting for. Labour Party policy is we should retain full participation in the single market. The problem with our 6 tests is it said what we want to achieve, but not how we want to achieve it. The EEA puts flesh on the bones. It's a clear pathway to the kind of Brexit that respects the result of the referendum, reunites our deeply divided country, and does minimum damage to our economy.
OK, Catherine Forster's got a question, Stephen.
Well,
sure.
I just find it astonishing and deeply depressing that 2.5 years on from voting to leave, we really still do not know where we are. And I hear just so many words, and it's clear as mud to me.
It's a wail of anguish from Catherine.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we've got an immensely deep and complex relationship with the European Union built up over 40 years. The big mis-selling of this by the Brexiteers was, remember Liam Fox saying this was going to be the easiest process in history. Clearly not the case. And we're going to have to deal with this level of complexity. If we had said from the start that, negotiating with the EU is like building a house. You've got to agree on the basic foundations. You can then have an argument about the doors and the window and the colour of the wallpaper. And the fact is that the EU will, of course, protect its interests. And it said nothing, you can't just create a new deal that's out of thin air, not everything up for grabs. There are some basic models and foundations for the way the European Union works. And the UK, once it voted to leave the club, is going to have to negotiate with the EU on that basis. Unfortunately, there's such hubris and naivety from our government and incompetence has got us into this appalling situation. I agree with that.
Stephen Kinnock, got to leave it there. Good to talk to you. Talk to you again soon, I've no doubt at all. In the last couple of minutes of the show, I just want to get a perspective from the other side of the negotiating